Hello, Shoyan here. I'm starting another renovation project. This house has two Japanese-style rooms right in the middle, but I'm leaving those as they are. Everything else, the plumbing, living room, entrance, and Engawa, will get a major renovation. Alright, let's start the recap. I first heard about this renovation job in October last year, and I think we started in November. When we first met with the owner to discuss the work, we asked them if we could post it on YouTube, and they accepted. That's when we began filming the project. Looking at the plans, I realized it was a pretty big renovation. I remember asking the owner, "Are you really starting this at the end of the year?" If we'd begun 2 months earlier, we probably could have finished before New Year's. Renovating in winter while the owners are living inside is really tough. That was my biggest concern when I first heard about it. We started with dismantling. This house is 50 years old, built right around the time I started as an apprentice. I renovated part of my own house when it was 40 years old, so this one's about 10 years older. At first glance, the construction looks similar, but in 10 years, building materials, tools, and even the way we carpenters worked changed a lot. So even if the houses seem alike, the actual work involved is different. You can tell just by looking at this building that the carpenter who built it had exceptional dedication. Apparently, a single carpenter spent 2 years building it. But it's not the length of time that matters. It's the pride and care that go into the work. This is the kind of craftsmanship you can truly respect. I've worked on traditional houses and even dismantled shrine offices before, but those are a different story. For a regular home, this isn't about fancy details. It's just solid, precise work. I can picture a very skilled carpenter building this house. Once we finished dismantling, I started with the floor. When tearing down, you usually start from the ceiling, then do the walls, and finally the floor. But when rebuilding, you start with the floor. First, I set the floor level exactly, then build the walls and ceiling while keeping the building's tilt in mind. In this house, I stripped the floor completely. It was more work than new construction, but using all new materials for the frame meant the floor would be as solid as a brand new one. With the good laser tools we use these days, I can make the floor even straighter than in new construction. But making it perfectly straight isn't always best. You have to think about how it connects to the existing seals and trim. So I built the floor first while considering a lot of different factors. Modern houses always have concrete slab under the floor, But older homes like this usually have bare ground. Back then, foundations were even made with natural stones. I tamped the ground and set the pier blocks. This work brought back memories. What really changed floor work wasn't switching from bare ground to concrete, but from wooden posts to steel or plastic ones. This really felt like a breakthrough when it comes to installing flooring. With those, adjusting height is just a matter of spinning a nut. It's like using a jack. With wood, the first and second posts usually go in fine, but once you're adjusting the third or fourth, it can throw the others off. So you keep tweaking, and it can take hours to set all the posts in one room. Now, with plastic posts, I can set the height for 2 rooms in about 10 minutes, and they're termite-proof too. Old Japanese houses, for better or worse, have fewer walls. Rooms are divided by sliding doors, so if you remove them, you get a huge open space. Sometimes 4 or 5 rooms, each with an area of about 8 tatami mats connected. But for modern living, that many doors isn't practical. So I took a 3.6 meter opening and reduced it to 1.8 meters. In this house, the 3.6 meter kamoi had sagged. I put a column in the middle, made one side a wall, and kept the other as a 2-panel doorway. The wall side can hold a TV or other items. I started flooring from the back. Since the owners live in the center of the house, I first took apart the back 14.5 square meter Japanese room and the 14.5 square meter kitchen, then finished them one by one, working my way toward the front. The flooring is 30mm thick joistless cedar, not hinoki cypress. Even with joistless flooring, I set the joists closer together for strength. With 30mm cedar boards, I don't add insulation. Hinoki can feel cold, so insulation helps, but cedar feels warm underfoot even in winter. I don't know its insulation rating, but even in midwinter, standing barefoot on it doesn't feel cold. It seems to hold warmth. It's just the nature of the wood. That's why I've never needed insulation for this cedar flooring. After the floor comes the ceiling. The living room and kitchen are each 14.5 square meters, and between them is a beam for the second floor. It was a bit too straight and sagged under the load over 50 years. It could have stayed as it was. It actually got stronger over time, but we decided to reinforce it with solid pine support beams. Since I couldn't fit it entirely above the ceiling, I left half of it exposed. Even well-dried pine beams are heavy. A beam with a 300mm sapwood side takes 2 people to carry, and lifting it into place took 4 of us. Once they're in, it won't sag anymore, and the exposed look feels nice and secure. Aside from special cases like adding support beams, ceiling work is one of the least affected parts of a renovation. This might sound extreme, but even if the structure is out of level, you just make the ceiling framework level, and it'll be the same as new construction since nothing changes above the ceiling. That's why ceiling work is usually one of the easier parts. Next, I installed the window frames. In renovations, replacing windows often means removing the old ones, which can involve extra dismantling inside and out. This time, the schedule with the exterior dismantling company didn't line up, so I kept the old bay windows and installed new frames inside, like interior storm windows. Old wooden bay windows were built outside the main structure. Their frames didn't align with the columns, so wider frames were used. That leaves plenty of room for new, usually smaller, frames to fit inside. That's why I can work in this way. I realized later that as long as you dismantle the bay windows carefully afterward, this method works just fine. Then I moved on to the extensions for the window, closet, and doorway. The most troublesome part of renovations is the wall. In houses that are 40 to 50 years old, the walls are almost never perfectly plumb. They tilt one way or the other. It would be a miracle to find a perfectly vertical wall. The only way to fix them is one wall at a time with a lot of patience. Once they're corrected, I put up the drywall, and the walls look clean with no visible offsets. Next, I worked on the Japanese-style room. It has 2 closets and a large space for a kamidana. The right side is a closet and the left is a Japanese-style closet called an oshi-ire for futons. Both use the same wood and structure. There will be a kamidana on top of the closet, which is huge, an unusual size. When I arrived, everything had already been cleared out, so I never saw it fully set up. I heard it had an altar with ornaments and decorations. It must have looked lively. Recreating the space took extra thought and creativity. The god will be on the top of the closet. The futon will be stored in the left oshi-ire. We built it using the same cedar used for the right closet for good moisture control. The trickiest part of this renovation was the entryway. Before installing the flooring, I had to set the column that joins the kamachi. The old one had been removed, so I replaced it with a clean hinoki cypress column and matched it with a hinoki kamachi. In the entryway, the shoe-off area had black pebble finished tiles, a traditional design. Making good use of this, I balanced them against the light and dark tones of the hinoki kamachi. I think it created a nice contrast, but the challenge was getting all the joints to meet cleanly. Before that, there was a large entrance hall, about 14.5 square meters. I used the same cedar flooring here as in the rest of the house. Since the whole house has an accessible floor, I matched the height to the rooms I'd already finished so that it would be level throughout. This entryway is L-shaped. When it comes to an entry hall, the kamachi is always placed at the front. When laying planks, I'm most careful about keeping the board layout balanced through the entire house. I started laying from the back closet and planned to have a 1 centimeter allowance when I reached the entryway kamachi. If you get the layout wrong, you can end up short by even 3 millimeters, which is scary. Luckily, it lined up perfectly in the end. Anyway, balancing out the planks throughout the house was nerve-wracking. This entryway has another step of flooring, a Cohen strip that meets the black pebble tiles. If the black pebble floor had been replaced, it would have been much easier. But instead, I had to match the new Cohen kamachi to the existing concrete and pebble floor. It's not a common situation, but since the pebble floor was perfectly straight, I could fit it cleanly. It ended up being a nicely shaped Cohen strip. The Cohen kamachi and the column are both hinoki cypress, so I didn't run cedar joistless flooring there. Instead, I used 360mm long planks, the same length as the Cohen. I used solid hinoki cypress for this part. It blends in perfectly. Hinoki is ideal for custom pieces in entryways. Next to the entryway is shoe storage. Being an older home, the entrance is 2.7 meters wide. I divided it with a column, creating a main front entrance for guests and a family entrance in front of the shoe storage. The family entrance is a bit narrow, but that's how we designed it. The entryway is separated into 2 sections. I set a column, joining it with the hinoki kamachi I'd installed earlier. Then I added a small foundation stone on top of the pebble floor and set the post there. The detailed wall work in this area was tricky. It was a complicated entryway to build. In the Hinoki entrance, a noren will hang across the family entrance in front of the shoe storage. Every day, you'll pass under the noren and say, "Take care." Just like the entrance to a cozy eatery, it makes daily comings and goings feel special. The original wide-open entrance was impressive, but adding the noren on the right area gives it extra charm. The last part of the renovation was the Engawa. Working on an old Engawa like this really took me back. In the old days, each Engawa had its own sliding glass door frames with a batten installed between them. This one even had sheet metal. It was nostalgic work for me. This house was built right around when I started as an apprentice, so in a way, we're the same age.
ここにまで土わざわざ。
こんなところに土壁がいるか。
Engawa have a certain charm, but these days they're often seen as wasted space. I think they're nice to have, but you can live perfectly fine without one. This house's Engawa is 11.5 square meters, which would be unthinkable in most modern houses. These days, people try to build without extra space to keep costs down. Back then, it wasn't about beating your neighbors, but you didn't want to lose to them either. Now, traditional features like tatami rooms, tokonoma, and Engawa are disappearing. It's sad to see them go.
What 結局何やったの？これが上がってきたんやわ、敷きが。
こんなことある？
じゃないかな。
This Engawa had 7.2 meters of sliding glass doors running the full length. In the past, they were often full length, but you don't actually need that much to let sunlight in. Now, it's 90 centimeters shorter, with two 1.8 meter sets of sliding doors. That's plenty. Back then, it was all about letting sunlight in and keeping things open. Insulation wasn't really a concern. Homes were built for cool summers, and winter cold was just something you endured. That was the mindset. Everything was designed with summer in mind. This Engawa floor is the last flooring work in the renovation. With floor renovations, nothing is standard. Each entryway and Engawa has its own design, so the installation isn't always the same. So I work out the best approach for each site's layout and conditions. That flexibility is both the challenge and the fun of the job.
これシワあるやろ。
While working here, we got the last big snow of the year, which made things harder. I think I say this often, but the owner lives in the center of the house, so normally I could pass outside, but the snow blocked the way and slowed everything down. I was stuck, wondering what to do. Working in a lived-in house is always tricky. In all rooms with a 3.6 meter short side, I ran the 3.6 meter planks across the width. But for this 9 meter long Engawa, I laid them lengthwise. The way you lay flooring depends on the Engawa's width. This joistless flooring is 18 centimeters wide. Usually, you lay that lengthwise. With 30 centimeter boards, either direction works. With 45 centimeter boards, laying them crosswise makes it look more luxurious. Just a little flooring side note. We're now in the final stage of the renovation. It might go without saying, but the most common renovation jobs are exterior walls and roofs. Inside, wet areas like kitchens and bathroom floors are the most common. Engawa often need work too because the floor gets damaged. This is because the old sashes cause condensation. Unlike the normal glass for windows, sliding glass doors are large, so the condensation occurs over a wide area. That water runs down, damaging all of the flooring about 3 centimeters inward. Sunlight also wears down the finish over time, so it's no surprise that Engawa flooring often needs replacing. People often ask me which is harder, new construction or renovation. They often assume renovation is easier. That's a tough question. In the old days, new construction meant marking and cutting all the timbers yourself from scratch. That comes with its own challenges. These days, new builds are more standardized. But with renovation, every decision depends on the actual conditions on site. You have to make the call right there each time. That's what makes it challenging. While new builds have their own challenges, renovation often means bringing things back into alignment, sometimes using older techniques. So, how was the recap of this renovation? It started in November and took about 3.5 months. It was the first time I'd worked on a house while the owners lived in the middle of it. I'm sure it caused them some inconvenience, and I'm grateful for their patience. We started by dismantling, keeping the 2 Japanese-style rooms as is, and rebuilding everything else inside. We also replaced the sliding glass doors and frames, as well as the exterior siding. It was almost a full house major renovation. The 50-year-old interior now has a modern kitchen and white plaster walls. It's been completely transformed. The owners are as happy as if it were a brand new house. 50 years have passed, the major renovation is done, and from here on out, the structure's solid. Since the house is built solid, I'm confident it'll easily last another 50 years. Now, the renovation of this site is complete. Thanks for watching.